Good afternoon, everybody. We hope you're doing well out there today. This is Anita Kerr and Amber Fornacieri from the Illinois Professional Development Network, and we're here to welcome you to a Tuesday afternoon webinar about exploring free learning management system options, specifically Google Classroom and Canvas today. So we're happy you've joined us. We hope that you're doing okay seeing the screen, hearing us. But if you're having any difficulty, you'll see in the bottom right corner of the screen a chance that you can call in by phone if you're having any audio difficulties. So take a look at that information and take advantage of that if you are having any issues. You can also use the chat feature that is on your panel for this GoToWebinar, and let us know if you're having any issues, and one of us will help you. And certainly as we go along, if you just have questions, Amber and I, when we're not talking, one of us will be monitoring that, and we'll be happy to assist you in any way. We're just grateful that you've joined us, and we're going to cover a lot of information at a pretty quick pace today. But what we hope is that you're just kind of gathering some information, and you're going to start using it to start thinking through some of your options for this coming year. So don't feel like you have to swallow every tiny detail right now. Take some information in, start processing, and then you'll have plenty of time to think through some of the things that we go over as we get into this next fiscal year. So just a quick heads up before we start that, as always, your professional development network is here for you. And we have several resources for you, one of which is our excellenceinadulted.com site, which is our PD portal. This is where you'll find everything professional development related in Illinois for adult ed. Visit that frequently, including our resources page, which has a lot of information related to distance learning. And you can also follow us on social media using the code that you see there. Okay, so let's get into the meat of today. And again, I apologize for giving you, again, kind of a burst of information today. It's not as interactive as we would prefer to be in a professional development workshop of some kind, but let's take this kind of in your head. Think of this as I'm gathering information and I'm going to process it. So there's going to be a lot of stuff coming at you. Keep in mind, though, that this webinar will be recorded and will be posted on that Excellence website, and you can get to it at any point after this. Also, you'll see in your handouts tab on the GoToWebinar panel, the slides from today are there, and you can go back and reference those or download them at any time. So let's talk learning management system. Today we're going to use this acronym LMS. We're going to say that regularly. And what we mean by that is a learning management system. That's a software application or a web-based platform where you document, track, report, deliver educational coursework. Basically, in plain English, it's a one-stop location for your instruction in your class. And so what we're going to do today is talk about some of the free options that are out there for those of you who don't already have a learning management system in your program. So on the screen, you see a whole list of features that most learning management systems, or LMSs, will have. And I'm going to give you a second to just skim those. So if you'll draw your attention to the slide on the screen, just review those under instruction, under tracking and grading, and under communication. You'll see there's several features that can be done all on one learning management system. And that is really, when we talk about an LMS, this is what we're talking about, is one location where you can achieve all of these functions. And we're going to give you a couple of options today to look at. Now, let's ask ourselves the first question, right? Kind of the most important question, which is, why would I want to use an LMS? Why is it an advantage to me to do this thing? So maybe you've not had experience with a learning management system, or maybe you are a coordinator or an administrator at a program whose institution doesn't have one already, and you're looking and wondering, is it worth my while to invest the time and effort to learn a new system like this in order to run my class through it? And Amber and I would very much say, yes, it's worth your time. And what we're going to try to do today is convince you of that and give you some tips about where to start looking. So what I want to do is show you this infographic, which is showing you the LMS benefits for students. And I just want to show you this LMS infographic real quickly. So it has, oh, there we go, top 5 LMS benefits for students. And I want to show you what the top 5 are according to this infographic. The first one is access to information anytime, anywhere. Okay, so we know that now that we're working in a distance learning or at least a hybrid environment for many of our students in this upcoming year, that accessing material anywhere, anytime on a mobile app, an app that they can look at on their device, that's very important for students, that easy access. So that's one benefit from an LMS. Another benefit that we want to take advantage of is this centralized information. Everything you need to teach your course is in one place, and students can very quickly get access to everything, whether it's coming from you or things that they have sent to you. Everything is in one central location. That's a definite benefit of an LMS. Another one is the increased communication that happens through a learning management system. Students can collaborate with each other through the system. They can make connections and have dialogue with each other as students and with you as the teacher. And they can also just simply receive updates, emails, posts very quickly from you without having to access a separate email account. A fourth advantage is that studying becomes more enjoyable. Students who can work at their own pace in a self-paced way, that often is engaging for students. They like that. And they also, you can build into that LMS a lot of engaging content, really reaching out and trying to make things really effective for them. And so if you make that your goal, your LMS can be really super enjoyable for your students. And the last benefit here, you'll see the clock on the screen, is a time saver. LMSs are wonderful because students can very quickly find the material that they need. They can submit assignments with just one click to you, and they can receive your feedback and your updates right in one place with just one click. And these are definite advantages. So let's talk beyond. Now that I've told you an LMS is really good and important, let's stop for a second and let you think out a question you might be having, which is, what if I feel that a learning management system is just too much right now? That is a legitimate concern that you might be feeling, that you might be having. You may feel that for you personally, trying to learn one more new thing is too much. Or you may have students in your classrooms, in your program, that you think it would be too much for them, right? And I get that. So let's talk about, for teachers who are either low tech or overwhelmed or who have students who are in those ways, let's talk about another option outside of an LMS that we want to just mention. Okay, we're not going to talk too much about this, but I want to cover it very briefly, and that is building a teacher website as opposed to using a learning management system. This is an option where you would simply create a website for yourself as a teacher, and then all of your assignments and information could be posted there. It's kind of a one-stop shop. Weebly.com and Google Sites both are free and fairly simple to use website building platforms that you could create. And you've seen, there's my Google Sites class for my Lincoln Land class right there. It's not hard to build one, and you can put your assignments in by day or by week. Weebly has something similar. It's pretty user friendly, and you could access that at any point and start a website. Let's say you were feeling a little overwhelmed and you thought, I don't think I can learn a learning management system, but I could build one website. Let me tell you why I'm going to push for the LMS instead, and here's why. We told you the website option, there it is, a couple of choices. Here's why I don't recommend that. The drawback for creating a website is you still are going to need multiple tools to work with your students. You're still going to need a place to send them messages like remind.com or something. Students can't submit work onto your website. You can provide information to them, but they can't really submit work to you. And there's no platform for you to interact with your students or for students to interact with each other through a website like this. So it will do one thing for you. give information out. It won't do all the other things that an LMS will do. So what I want to do is encourage you for the next just few minutes that you're with us is to consider the LMS, okay, with an open mind. Even if you think this is too much for me right now, I think that you're here, so you're questioning, and I want to encourage you that you can do it, okay? So here's a quote that I want to put up for you, and it says, "The expert in anything was once a beginner." I really like this idea, right? Nobody comes to something like a learning management system to build their course in and automatically knows everything. This is just not reality. We all start as beginners. You will, and so will your students, and that is totally fine. The other thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to become an expert in the whole learning management system at one time. You could start using a learning management system and use 2 or 3 pieces of it until you get very comfortable and your students are very comfortable. And then you can add in components from the LMS to your course as you learn. So don't feel overwhelmed. Let's go in this together, knowing that we're all kind of beginners right now, and that is okay, right? So we're going to start with our first LMS that is a free option for you, which is Canvas. And I want to start by just reminding you that if your institution or your program does not have some sort of an LMS, a learning management system like Blackboard or something that they already use, any teacher can open an account in either Canvas or Google Classroom and use the LMS as one individual person. This doesn't need to be done through your program. You don't have to have administrative sign off. This is something that any of you could sign up for an account and start on your own as just one teacher. And that's certainly something that you could be doing. So what about Canvas? Well, let's start with, how do I get an account? Well, Canvas does have a paid service and it's excellent. It has a lot of features to it, but I will tell you that their free account has almost as many features as their paid one. And we use the free Canvas account here at the PDN. Amber and I use it all the time. And we feel very comfortable offering it as a suggested platform for you. The free version, you sign up for a free Canvas account and you have to give them your name, your email address. It'll ask you the name of your organization. That's about it. Once you've created your account, then you can start building courses in your learning management system. And you can also then, once you have a course built, you can invite students to join your course when they create a free Canvas account as well as a student. So it's a very simple process. And once you've done that, actually, before you do that, there's the website right there. I've just popped it up in yellow on your screen in that little blue box. That is the actual website where you would go to start a Canvas account, instructure.com/Canvas. And remember, that'll be on your handout. That's there for in your slides that you can take a look at later. Okay, so what does it look like if I'm in Canvas and I want to use it? What's it going to look like? Well, here, after you've created your account, this is the teacher dashboard. And this is an example of what it would look like once you've logged into your Canvas account. And I, in this instance, have 4 courses that I have built. These happen to be professional development courses that I offered this spring, so they're still in here. But that's what you'll see. Your dashboard would look the same. And every course that you have created and published or made public will show up here on your dashboard. And then you can invite students to join it if it is a published course. So each box is a course here in the middle, and I can click on that box to open my course and it'll take me to the course homepage. Now, you in your instance might just have one course that you're offering that semester, for instance. So you may only have one box because you made one course, and that's fine. But you can also build many, many, many different courses. If you're teaching maybe a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and a Tuesday, Thursday, or something like that, you'd have more than one course. Let's look at a couple of items on the left-hand side. I want to draw your attention to that black strip. 2 things I want you to see. One, on that navigation menu is an inbox. Canvas has its own email system built in, and any student who is in your course, you can email them directly through Canvas so that you don't have to go out to a separate email, create an email and send it. You can do that right within the system, and students can email you the same way. So there's a great advantage there. There's also a calendar feature over here, which is really valuable because you can you can set assignments, set due dates, and then students will know what's coming up for them in the course. Okay. So let's take a quick close look at the right-hand side of that Canvas dashboard. I want to show you what it looks like. This is your to-do list, okay? And you'll see the top red arrow of my to-do list. I want to draw your attention there. The to-do list is primarily for you, the teacher, is going to show the work that is waiting for you to look at and review or grade. The first red arrow, you'll see I have three, the blue 3 there, I have 3 assignments in my master teacher course that are waiting for me to grade at this point. And then you'll notice right above it, there's another master teacher assignment. I only have 1 that needs to be graded. It'll delineate that out for me, and it'll take them away as I grade them or review them. You'll notice the second red arrow down at the bottom. There's a view calendar option where, again, I can see at a glance what needs to be done, what's coming up, what my students are going to be submitting in the next couple of days. Okay. And all of the assignments that have submitted work pop up right there as a reminder to me that I've got some grading to do. So that's the teacher dashboard, a little bit of what it would look like once you get in there and start building a course and start working in it. Now, what I want to do quickly is show you the student dashboard. What does it look like when a student logs into their Canvas account and opens their dashboard? Well, they would see the courses that they have joined, the ones that they have accepted an invitation to. You've invited them, they've joined your class. So this student happens to belong to 3 classes right now, a biology, a history, and a communications class. And you'll notice that the student dashboard looks extremely similar to the teacher, right? There's their inbox and their calendar function on the left, their courses in the middle that they would click on to go to the homepage. I want to show you on under the boxes of the courses, you see the little megaphone? That's an announcement. That if it's lit up blue, that means there's something I need to look at here. My teacher has sent an announcement to the course. It's a quick place to get information out. And then on the right, again, you see their to-do list over there. Upcoming activities. That coming up is, again, a reminder to students, this is what's getting ready to come due in my course. It can be really helpful. They can also see recent feedback. You'll see down there on the bottom right. A teacher who has given them grades or written feedback to some assignment, the student can go down there and see that feedback at a glance. Again, remember, the advantage, one of them to the LMS, is everything all in one place. So the student can find their coursework. That's going to be in the big colored squares in the middle. They can email their teacher through their inbox. They can see what's coming up in the course. They can look at their feedback from their last assignment, all of that in one place. Okay. So let's talk practicalities for a second. Let's say you're thinking, okay, Anita, I saw that dashboard. It looks kind of interesting. What would it look like if I started to try to build a course? How much work are we talking? Well, that's a little bit up to you, right? How detailed does your course need to be? That's up to you. Some of you may have some pre-built curricula items that need to be in your course, and they're kind of automatic. You must. Other things might be added to or designed by you. But it's a pretty simple process, and I just want to show you on this screen right here 1 or 2 items, one of which is that blue module button at the top. You see the little arrow next to that? A module, think of it as basically a section of your course, right? Some people might have a module per week or a module per class, however it might work for them. And you simply add the module and then you start putting your content in. Okay, and I've shown you, I put a welcome module. I have a week 1 lesson module, and I have a discussion board module. You see that there? The welcome is a place where you can put a written welcome or a video recording or an audio recording of your voice. You can have students introduce themselves to each other through a written activity. And then you'll see there, I have mine set up by weeks. So my week 1, you'll see everything the student needs to do in week 1 is right here in this module. They have their vocabulary review they're going to do, the reading they need to do, the video they should watch, and then their assignment. And then they have a week 1 writing activity to do on the discussion board where everybody posts together. This is my week 1 module for this course, and I have built it one piece at a time. I just kept adding a plus sign, and I want to show you that big module. The big blue button is where I add activities, or excuse me, I add modules, and then you'll second a yellow arrow, that little plus sign, that's where I add different activities within my module. So just as a quick review, week 1 lesson, that's one big module, right? And then I can add and push this little plus sign over here if I want to add, let me put my highlighter here. Oh, wrong one. Let's do spotlight. There we go. See this? I can add that plus sign, and that would add another activity down here below. Let's say I wanted to add another reading, or I wanted to add a second activity. I would hit that plus sign. It would pop up an alternative page, and I can either add a page of information, I can add an activity or an assignment, I could add a discussion, I could add a quiz, I could add anything I needed to there. Okay. So this is how the system works. It's pretty simple. And again, I'm not going to demonstrate all of this for you because this isn't really a how-to. This is more of a why should I, right? Why is it worthwhile to use a learning management system? Well, because it's great. It's all in one place. The students can have access to everything. You can create all your material in one place. And I want to show you that it's not really hard, okay? Here, for example, let's say I was building an assignment and I wanted to, I'd already put my reading and my video, the things the students will do. And now here's their assignment. You won't be able to read this very carefully, but what I just want to show you is you just give it a name, week 1 assignment in this case, and then you basically have a word processing box with different fonts and colors and sizes and shapes, and you can just create like you would in a Word or a Google Doc. Create your assignment the way you want it to look, and then down here you can give it points, or you can leave it as a complete or incomplete, a pass fail. You can do it however you want. If you're not a grade or a percentage person and you want to go complete incomplete, you can. And then you can also choose a submission type. How are my students going to give this back to me? And most of you are just going to click online as your submission type, meaning the students are going to upload a document. They're going to type into the computer and they're going to upload their document within Canvas. That's how they turn in their assignment. Very simple. You could show that to them in a very quick how-to, and then your students would have it, I promise. They would be very comfortable using something like this after they had a little bit of a demonstration. And that takes us to the grading. Just very quickly, I want to show you kind of how the grade book works, which is what Canvas calls their grading system. It's very uncomplicated. On the left-hand side of the screen you're looking at, I have covered up the names of the students in my class, but they would be listed alphabetically by last name. And these would be the students you had invited to your course and they had joined, okay? You will see multiple columns here. One of them is got a green check mark in most of them. That's that independent work that's marked as complete or incomplete. They get a check mark if they did it, right? But you'll see the second column, I assigned points to this assignment and it was worth 15 points. And so students were getting mostly 15 out of 15, right? Well, what about the little dash? That's a student who has not submitted that yet. So it's empty. You can think of it as it's sitting there blank because they haven't submitted. But then if you look over to the checklist discussion, you see those little 2 icons. They look kind of like a paper. That is someone who has submitted work and I haven't graded it yet. So that's how the gradebook works. I can see completions, I can see scores if I gave it a score value, and I can also see students who have not submitted, students who have, and it hasn't been graded yet. And everything stays in this grade book until you delete it. So you could save this for a whole year or however long you needed it, or you can delete it at the end of every semester when you're done with the student's work. That's the grade book, and it's a feature that's really handy for tracking progress and keeping track of your students' work. And in fact, many teachers, and I'll just say this as a side note, who don't teach online still use a learning management system to track their face-to-face classes. So keep that in mind as well, too, that that's an option. You might be finding yourself wanting to use an LMS no matter where you're teaching. So a side note, remember one of our benefits of an LMS is everything is all in one place. Well, guess what Canvas has built into it? A web conferencing platform. So if you're thinking, okay, I've got all this stuff going on, I've got Remind, I've got Zoom, I've got all of these things I'm using, well, guess what? Canvas has a web conferencing platform built into it. So you don't need to use Zoom or some other feature. It's all right here. It has chat, webcams, audio, screen sharing, breakout rooms, all the things that Zoom and other things have. You just simply go into your menu on a course and you hit the conference button. Conference is the button that takes you to the big blue button, which is just the name of their web conferencing platform. It allows you to do all the things that Zoom or Google Meets or any of those other things allow you to do. Super handy. And again, it's already built in, so you don't have to send separate links with Zoom invites and everything. What you do is you build the conference, set a date and a time, and then you hit invite class. And everybody who's enrolled in that class will automatically get an emailed invitation through you clicking one button. Super handy. I recommend it highly. It's another great feature that Canvas offers to you. So let's take a deep breath, okay? You may be thinking, all right, I've been listening to you. I might not have sold you on Canvas, but hopefully I've sold you on some of the advantages of using a learning management system. And one of the things I want to tell you is that even if you're starting to think, maybe I might try something, but what if I have trouble? Canvas has a huge support system online. You can see the website over here to the left of this screen. It says community.canvaslms.com. That is a website that has all kinds of videos, screenshots, written explanations of basically how to do everything you need to do in Canvas. And Amber and I, again, use Canvas all the time for our classes for PD. And we use the online support for Canvas all the time. When we can't remember how to do something, we just Google it real quick, pull up the help, and off you go. So you can do this, even if you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed. What I hope you feel is, no, wait, I don't have to be an expert. And look at this great support that's available to me if I do want to try this. So that's Canvas. Amber and I are comfortable in Canvas, and we know a little bit about it and would be happy at any point to answer any questions or share information with you if you want to try Canvas at your program too. So Amber, you ready for the next one?
I am, and I just wanted to point out, I put this in the chat, but I did want to point out that Canvas is also mobile friendly. And so Canvas does have, they have two separate apps actually. They have a Canvas teacher app and they have a Canvas student app. And so if your students are wanting to access their Canvas account or their Canvas course from their phone, they can have the Canvas student app, and then they'll be able to access everything that you're putting up there. Same for you. If you feel like you might be on the go, not real sure where at this point, right? But on the go at some point, you can access it from your phone as well with the Canvas teacher app. Sometimes when Anita and I are at conferences, long ago, we would be needing to check in on students or participants in our courses, and we could use that app to quickly grade things or give people quick feedback. Yes, I got it, thank you, so on and so forth. So Canvas is also mobile friendly, as is Google Classroom, which you might have expected just because Google is so big. So I'm going to share my screen.
Yep, thanks.
And let's talk a little bit about Google Classroom. So hopefully, did that come through, Anita? You can see it now? Okay.
Yep.
Just one second. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Google Classroom. Google Classroom is another learning management system similar to Canvas. It is free. It is something that I have used at the college that I teach at in the past. Now we have college-wide a learning management system, but I know that that's not always the case. Some of our adult ed programs are maybe not quite considered part of the college system yet, so they don't have access to the learning management system. And that's part of the reason we're throwing this webinar too, is to give people some free options that they can work with. So I'm going to share with you a few things about Google and getting into Google, a little bit of background information about Google Access. So the first of which, and this is from the lovely Melinda Holt. If you've never been on a webinar with Melinda, you are missing out. She is from OTAN, which is an organization in California. She's a project specialist and also a Google guru. And she explained this really well and gave me permission to define this for you in this way. And so did you know that there are different Googles? You may or may not have. In our case, we're going to talk about two of them. There's more than two, actually. There's the EDU Google and the Pub Google, which stands for public. And it's important that you know the difference, but before you Googleize yourself or your students, before you kind of go on this adventure, it'll help you with some of the troubleshooting or some of the setup and setting it up in a way that really benefits you and your students from the beginning. So here is an analogy for you to help you. There are different domains within the Google suite, and that's what Google calls all of their products, right? All of their things fall under Google Suite. And they have, being a part of these different domains gives you different perks. A handy way to remember it is that the public domain is like a pub. It's open to all, right? Anybody can go to the pub. While the edu domain is like a club, it is exclusive, right? It is managed by some sort of educational entity so that it only allows approved people in. So kind of like the coffee shop or an exclusive club that you go to. So pub, public, edu, that domain is a club. It's organized and managed by an educational entity in this case. There's also another Google type called biz, B-I-Z, and that's for businesses that use Google, but I'm not going to go into that one as much either, that one because it doesn't pertain to us today. So there's a little bit of explanation. We have the pub and the club, right? So let's talk about what are some of the perks. And I'm just going to be quiet for a few seconds so you can kind of look at these, and then I'll highlight some of them. So let's take a look at the pub perks or the public account perks. And most of you or some of you already probably have your own Gmail address. It's a very popular domain for email, right? And so you have these perks. You can set up an amount of storage. You have freedom. You can advertise on your public Gmail. You can select how you want the advertising to appear. You have control over your own account, and you're also responsible for security. So when you switch over to the club, you kind of gain access to some of these other perks, like a very branded email address. You have unlimited storage if you're in the EDU club. You have direct access to your organization. There's no advertising. You have enhanced security. It's FERPA and COPA compliant, which is important for your organization. But then there's this, but district administration is important. So you may even have one of each or more than one of each of these types of account. I do. My personal email is a public email. I have a club email or an EDU email for my job at the Professional Development Network because that's what the institution I work for uses. They use Gmail as their email service. So the end of my email address for work is EDU. I also have a separate club email that's for the college that I teach at because they also use Gmail as their email. So you can have more than one of these accounts. What's important to know, this is all background information to help you understand how your students can access Google Classroom in the easiest way. So here's a few things for you to know. You must have a Gmail login or club credentials, public or club credentials to use Google Classroom. It is not just a website that you can go to and use and interact with without having credentials. That's how you track the students and yourself in that class. With Canvas, you can use any email address. Any email address will work. With Google, you need to have a Gmail address. It doesn't matter if it's a public domain or an EDU domain, but you have to have one, okay? So that might be A small technical barrier that you need to get your students on board with if you want to use Google Classroom is they need some sort of Gmail address. So not only do you need a Gmail address, your students need it, and you want your email domain to match your student's email domain. So let me explain that a little bit. If you are using your institute, maybe your institution, for instance, the college that I work at has Gmail as their service. If I'm going to use that as my teacher email with the edu at the end, then I would want my students to access Google Classroom with their edu credentials. Now, it's not impossible for them to get their personal email into Gmail, but there are some problematic things that can appear if you're using a edu domain and they are using a public domain. It's much easier from the beginning if you're using a public Gmail account and Google Classroom is set up with that account, and then your students are using a public Gmail account. Again, like I said, it doesn't mean they won't be able to access it, because I have seen cases, or I've even had a case where a student had to use their Gmail public account in order to access my Google Classroom, and it worked okay. But there were a couple things that became problematic, like being able to submit assignments that they had created in their Google Drive, and so on and so forth. So a decision you'll want to make if you're going to use Google Classroom is, if your program or institution uses Gmail for education, you and your students should use those credentials. If you're using Google Classroom individually, you and your students will have to have Gmail or public domain credentials to access it. So I hope that is clear. I think that is one of the big confusion points of using Google is, well, do I have to use a Gmail? And the answer is yes. At some point, you used to be able to access Google Classroom without using Gmail, but they've kind of done away with that. So that is a little bit of how you should be thinking ahead of when you create a Google Classroom, if that's what you want to use. So if that sounded complicated, I'm sorry, but it's more, the more you know, the better you can do things, right? And just like Anita said, everybody starts as a beginner. None of us start as experts. I didn't know this when I first started using Google Classroom, and then I started having some issues. And so then I realized, oh, this is my issue. This is what the problem is. I have kind of mixed email domains within my Google Classroom, and it was creating some problems for me. So if you decide to go with a Google Classroom platform, it looks a lot like Canvas, and it has a lot of the same features. For instance, this is my Google Classroom dashboard. You notice each box, just like in Canvas, is a different course. So I have a playground class. I have a couple different math courses and a basic computer course, and these are all old courses. That's why you sometimes see 0 students in there. But once you log into Google Classroom and create a Google Classroom, this is what you will see. And right up here in the top right corner is a plus sign. This will bring up a menu to add the shell of a new course. And it's where you can title your course. And like you can see here, I have 4 courses. Very similar to Canvas, on the bottom, you can see that there are different icons here for different notifications that I'm getting through Google Classroom. I do recommend that if you are looking to play around a little bit before you make a decision, you make yourself some sort of playground class, or sometimes they're called sandbox classes, because they are just that. They are a place that you can play around and you can mix and match things and get to know what you're doing before you make it go live and do a class for students. And that is something you can do in Canvas or in Google Classroom. And it's just a kind of a good idea. Even Anita and I have a regular playground class that we use kind of all the time when we want to try something new and we don't quite know if we are ready to put it into a final course. So this is what the dashboard looks like. How do students join the class. How does that work? So when you're ready to have your students join the class, there are two ways to go about this. Either way gets them access to the course. The first is the teacher shares a class code and the students sign in to Google Classroom and then they enter the code. So they'll sign into Google Classroom and there's a little button that says join class, and they would put the code that you gave them into there, and then they would have access to the course from then on. They do not have to do that all the time, just once. The other option is to accept an invite, which is the same way that you get into Canvas as a student. The teacher sends the student an invite through their email, and then the student clicks a button that says, I accept, and then they log in through their Google credentials, and they're in to the course. So two different ways. Sometimes I generally send the invite in email first, and then if a student is having trouble, I might give them the code and see if it works that way. So kind of two different ways they can access the course, and it doesn't matter which one they do. It's more for organization for you and how you want to go about it. Anita mentioned that in Canvas, there is Big Blue Button, as that's what they call their web conferencing platform. In Google Classroom, it's called Google Meet. If you're at all familiar with Google, you might be used to hearing Google Hangouts. They're slowly trying to phase Google Hangouts out and call it Google Meet officially. This is a lot like Zoom or Skype or GoToMeeting. It allows you to create one link that's always accessible, and then you and your students can meet at set times that you put into the platform. So right at the beginning, you can generate a meeting link and make it accessible for students, and then tell them when do you want them to come to your class, your synchronous pieces of your class. Just a second. Sorry about that, everybody. So at the top of this screen, you're going to see 4 different headings. And the one I want to talk about first is called your stream. This is very much like a social media stream, if you will. It's a list of all the things that are happening most recently in your course. Here you can always see the title of your course, the class code, and then the meeting link that if you've generated one, all at the top. And then below that, you can type in announcements to your class. You can see here I just put a sample, what color is the sky? It's just a question, and students can respond to that. So this is what the stream looks like when you're in the Google Classroom, and this is the landing page. Once that you or a student clicks on a specific course, this is what they see first. So this is an important place to put updates, new course information, announcements, things like that. The next part of the homepage is the Classwork page. So if you click Classwork, this is what the screen that appears, and this will show you different options here. There'll be a listing of all the different things that you have created as part of your classwork. And then if you want to if you want to create a topic, you can. So let me give you a parallel here. In Canvas, Anita talked about creating modules. In Google Classroom, they call it topics. So same idea, it's an organizational structure so that your students can kind of see a heading and then maybe classwork items underneath it, or assignments or readings or whatever the case. This allows you to provide some structure and some organization within your class stream and your classwork. Once you have some topics added to your Google Classroom, then you can create different kinds of classwork. And you can see the little drop-down menu here. You can create an assignment, a quiz, a question, which is a lot like a discussion board, if you're familiar with that term. Material, meaning I want to put up a web page, or I want to put up a reading of some sort, or a link to something. You can also reuse your posts. So if you've created something maybe for one class that's applicable to another, you can reuse posts as you go along, which is important as you go. And of course, you can create another topic. within your course. All right, so this is what it looks like when you go to create an assignment, and I'm not going to spin, it's probably really small on your screen, but this is what it looks like when you're creating an assignment. You put a title, you put instructions, it's just like word processing here, and then you can add an attachment. For instance, here, I added a Google Doc attachment, and one of the cool things that is newer in Google Classroom, a few years ago they didn't have this, is you can decide, do you want all the students to work on the same Google Doc, or do you want them each to have a separate copy? I often want them all to have a separate copy of it. And that, or when you click that option, it automatically gives them a separate copy that's connected to your Google Classroom. So as long as there are students in there, they are students in your course, that copy is still connected to your classroom and they can use that to submit their work. Also, there's options here on the right. You can assign a due date. Does it fall under a specific topic? Is there a rubric? How many points is it? Which course is it for? And then you would go up here to this black button and click Assign. So one of the big advantages of Google Classroom that people find is that it has several integrations with other educational sites. And I've just picked one. This is just one site that I think a lot of people are familiar with. It's called Khan Academy. Think of integrations as apps or websites that play nice with the Google Classroom platform. They can be integrated into your Google Classroom easily. So on specific sites like Khan Academy here, you'll see this icon right here that says Google Classroom. So for instance, this is practicing ordering negative numbers. And if you click on it, this little box shows up and it says, all right, where do you want it to go? And you choose the class that you want it to go to. And then there'll be some other drop-down questions, just quick and easy, that allow you to automatically put that assignment or that video or that specific practice right into your Google Classroom. So there's a lot of different websites that allow you to do this. But Khan Academy is one of them. And I think that's one of the big advantages of Google Classroom is those integrations, because they're such a huge company, they can kind of market that way to these big educational sites and allow them to be integrated into Google Classroom. So once you have assignments set up and students are completing them, you'll be able to see and review those assignments and easily be able to see what's been reviewed or graded. I really liked, this is just an example from one of my courses from obviously the summer of 2017, but I was able to see how many students turned it in, how many did I assign it to, how many were graded, and also I can see these are things that are to review that I still need to do, whereas there's another tab that says reviewed. So I can go back and look at what do I need to review and what has already been done. So this is a little bit like the gradebook feature that Anita was showing you with Canvas. So here's some of the advantages of Google Classroom. Many find it's very user-friendly, and part of the reason is Google is so integrated into our tech lives right now that it looks familiar, right? They kind of know where things are or how Google works. Also, anybody that uses Google on their phone or uses any Google apps, it kind of looks similar. So that's something. Also, Google Classroom does have a mobile-friendly app. So just like Canvas, students could access it on their mobile phone if they needed to, if they have a smartphone. And then many educational sites, like I mentioned before, such as CK12, Kahoot, and Khan Academy offer that seamless integration into Google Classroom. So hopefully, as we've moved through this, you are feeling empowered and encouraged to experience victory with this LMS. You can experience success using one of these, and we encourage you to think about what your first step toward that success would be. Maybe the first step is contacting your program director to tell them what you learned today and inform them that you want to start using one of these LMS options for the fall. Maybe your first step is to do a little research into Canvas or Google Classroom, explore some of the online support, watch some how-to videos, or maybe your first step is to talk to another teacher who's using an LMS to get advice. Whatever that step is, we encourage you to take it soon while the information and the motivation is fresh. We, of course, we've said this before, but we are here to support you. If you have any needs along the way, Anita and I are handy at Canvas and Google Classroom, but we also have experience with other LMS systems. So if you're looking for a quick answer, we can usually help you. Or we also have mentors available through the PDN of teachers across the state that are using different learning management systems that we could connect you with somebody else and have them help support you. So the question I have a question here in the box I was just checking real quick. It says, can CBOs or community-based organizations get access to Google EDU in addition to Pub? I'm sure they can, but that would be an administration decision. So you would want to go to your administrator. I know that you really just have to apply to get an educational domain added to your community-based organization. Google is very nonprofit friendly, so they're usually that's just a general statement I'll say, but you can get access to Google EDU. If you have a further question or you're not sure where, I could probably direct you to somewhere that would give you some more information about that, but I believe that is the case. And that is a good option too, that maybe that's your first step, is maybe you and another teacher want to get together. Maybe you're both sitting on this webinar and you want to talk to each other about, hey, maybe we could do this together. You're doing the math and science, I'm doing the reading and the social studies. If we both have it in Google Classroom, then our students will kind of see how we're doing it together. And that would also give you a support system built in, right? Of somebody that you could automatically reach to when you had maybe a little snafu or you wanted to figure out how to do something specific. All right, so we talked about this before, but the excellenceinadultsed.com website is a wealth of knowledge, and we have expanded this so much recently to include webinars for distance learning, resources, discussion boards, um, uh, and also different curriculum resources. If you're looking for a mentor, that website, or excuse me, that email address is right here on the screen for you, this iladedpdn@gmail.com. That is the email that you can email anybody from the PDN. We monitor that email all together and can get you to the right person. So if you're looking for a mentor, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to help as you all kind of embark on this distance learning possibility within your program. So we appreciate you. We thank you. If no one has said to you what a wonderful job you're doing, we know that you're doing a wonderful job, and we applaud you for all of your work that you've been doing in your programs and the work that you have coming up for you. A couple housekeeping things. All attendees will receive a certificate for 1 hour of PD, and this should come to you today in your email. So if you do not get it today, shoot us an email and say, I did not get my certificate. Before you do that, check your spam to make sure. And also remember that whichever email address you use to register is the email that the certificate is going to go to. Remember, a recording of this webinar will be posted on the Excellence site, so you can access it later, or you can suggest it for a colleague or maybe your administrator. Maybe you sat in on this, but your administrator wants to hear more about what is going on with Google Classroom or Canvas. They could always access this webinar later on the Excellence site. So I don't see many questions. If you happen to have any, we have a couple minutes, we can stay on, but you are free to go otherwise. So if you have any questions, stay on with us. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for being with us.
So one of the questions we have is, do you have other webinars coming up? Keep an eye on the Excellence site. We do have some plans for some webinars in July. I don't think anything left for June, so you're off the hook for June, but nothing, but July, definitely. If you need some more PD hours, I recommend the iLearn site because that has a lot of courses available to you if that's kind of what you were looking for. Um, Thank you for all the kind words in the question box.
Yeah.
Have either of us used Canvas for lower level learners?
Yeah.
No, I have not used Canvas for lower level learners. I have used Google Classroom. I have also used the LMS Brightspace for lower level learners.
I do know of a couple of teachers who use Canvas, and one of whom does use it with low levels. And the feedback from her would be just like you have a learning curve with Zoom or remind.com or any feature you would teach them through tech, there's a learning curve. Once you teach them what they need to know, they do fine. They do
Right.
fine. So the one advantage to the LMS is once you teach them the one system, you can do every element you need to do for your class within that system. It's almost easier to work with low level students that way than it is to teach them 7 different pieces of Kahoot and Remind and Zoom and so forth. So the feedback I've had from people is that they enjoy using an LMS with lower level learners because it simplifies the explanation process. So that would be the best feedback I could give you from there.
I would
Amber,
also
what
say,
about Google?
I
Oh,
would,
sorry.
I would also just say, I have to, with my high level learners, if I have those that semester, always go in and teach them how to use the LMS. So I have some feedback from some other Elgin Community College teachers where I teach that they were able to teach even their low level ESL students how to use a very basic LMS. You probably wouldn't be integrating Khan Academy into your Google Classroom with your low level learners right away. Maybe it would just be a content to read and an assignment, and you show them within your Zoom meeting or within your synchronous piece, this is how you're going to do it. And maybe you have to have some screenshots of what it looks like when you submit an assignment and so on and so forth. So yeah, so that's what I would say. What were you going to ask me, Anita?
Somebody had put another question in, so I thanks
Okay.
for finishing. Somebody had asked about time limits, and I think what they're asking about are the web conferencing pieces that
Oh.
are built into Google Classroom and Canvas. Do they
Mhm.
have that time limit that the free Zoom has? And the answer is no. Neither Canvas nor Google Classroom has a time limit on their web conferencing platforms. That may be another advantage to you if you're using it for synchronous meetings.
Right. Yeah, definitely an advantage. I didn't even think about that one.
I
That's a
didn't
good
either.
question.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's all the questions, so we're good.
Well, look at that. We're right on time. Well, have a great day,
Yeah.
everyone. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. We'd be happy to help. And enjoy your summer day. It's so beautiful outside with the breeze. Have a great rest of your day,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.